Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
Hello and welcome to the Women's Day podcast, a look back at some of the things we've done and talked about over the past 5 days. And this week we reported on some really amazing parties that were held to mark the Queen's official birthday, including one great one that was held in Peel. Anyway, we were joined live in the studio by a woman inspired to take up boxing after seeing some photographs of herself that she really didn't like. And fresh from a 3:30am start, the owner and founder of Noah Bakehouse told us why he turned to bread making to help combat city stress. But first this week, we also accepted an invitation to broadcast the show from a very special location. As I mentioned, Christy, we are in the Mayor's Parlour. We are drinking coffee from china cups and there are macaroons on the table.
I know, this is terribly posh.
I think I could get used to this, actually.
I think you're speaking in a slightly more refined voice as well.
Do you think? I think it's possibly the chair I'm sitting in. I think I might have stolen the Mayor's chair.
Yeah, she's stolen the Mayor's chair. He's not complained or anything.
Not yet, no. But Mayor John Skinner, Mayoress Jill Skinner, thank you so much for inviting us. Well, last night, the Mayor and Mayoress's charity appeal was officially launched. Just tell me, first of all, how important that charity side of your role actually is.
I think it's very important because, as we spoke about before, it gets the mayoralty out into the public, whilst raising money for some very worthy causes.
And how do you go about deciding which causes you are going to support?
Well, we gave it a lot of thought, and we decided that because of personal experiences, that we would choose the charities that we have.
OK, Jill, tell us which charities they are.
We're supporting the Manx DCAF, which is an Alzheimer's support group. We are supporting Nasim's Brain Tumour Charity, who again do a lot of work with sufferers and families of people with brain tumours. And we're supporting Anthony Nolan, the Bone Marrow Trust, Isle of Man.
And why have you chosen those three?
Right, the Manx DCAF, the Alzheimer's charity, I had an elderly aunt with Alzheimer's, and Councillor Raina Chattle also is very involved with that, and we've seen the sort of devastation that it causes to a family, and it's the support for the family, the whole family unit. So that's why we chose that. Nasim's Brain Tumour Charity, again, there is family experience of that, but Nasim actually went to school with one of our daughters, and Jerry Pishvay, Nasim's mum, was the guest of honour and the speaker at Ballacameen's prize giving last autumn, and what she talked about is fantastic. The awareness which she's done, and the final one, the Anthony Nolan Trust. Our youngest daughter donated bone marrow through Anthony Nolan when she was a student at university, and she says it's the best thing she's ever done in her life. And we know that somewhere there is a young person who is alive because of what Lucy did.
And it's incredible to give these three charities a much higher profile, which ordinarily they perhaps wouldn't have got.
Yes, we deliberately chose small charities, and it was, as you said, to raise the profile. And we felt that if we raise money for them, whatever you give to a small charity is obviously proportionately a much bigger donation than maybe one of the bigger charities, which is why we deliberately chose three small Manx charities.
Just talk me through your youngest daughter Lucy's decision. How did you feel when she told you that she was going to do that?
Actually, it surprised me. A very emotional experience. She'd gone to university, and as part of Freshers' Week, it was Spit and Save a Life. And so along with everything else she signed up for, which we probably didn't want to know about, she signed up for this one. And she said she signed up knowing that she would never get chosen. And she came home at the end of her second year, and I collected her from the airport, and her phone rang, and she said, "Mum, it's Anthony Nolan. They want to test me. I'm a possible match." And so she had the tests, and they said yes, she was a good match for somebody with leukemia. And that was in June. In June, and they told her it would be some time. However, this we know it's a young lady. That's all we knew, and we knew she weighed less than 50 kilos. So potentially a very young person. And in the so at the end of July, this young lady had deteriorated, And so Lucy was back in Belfast at living in her student accommodation as an alternative to at home, and so she had a series of injections which are injected sort of into her tummy to make her produce more bone marrow. And I went over to see her, and we both found it very, very emotional. They'd sent links to real life stories of people who donated. And she said she was very sore, she was very swollen, because obviously your major bones, for instance, the one at the back of your head, your shoulder blades, your hips, are the major sort of bone marrow storage areas as such. And it was the 12th of August, it was my birthday, that she flew to London and donated her bone marrow. And she phoned us up. We'd just been out for lunch with my parents, and the phone rang, and it was Lucy. And she said, "I've finished." She said they've got my bone marrow, and it was it's rather like a sort of kidney dialysis. So there's a needle into one arm and out of the other, and it spins through a machine. And she said it's sort of like a gold liquid which collects. And she said they've pointed to there's a motorbike downstairs, and they were loading it onto the back to take to Great Ormond Street. But we do know that the young lady is still alive. She gets regular updates, and this August it will be 3 years, and so there is a possibility then that they could have contact with each other. And she said when she was interviewed for the role she has teaching in the UK, they said, "What's the best thing you've ever done in your life?" And she said, "Well, I've saved somebody's life." The only thing we have reservations about is there is somebody else on this earth with Lucy's DNA. And having known her as a teenager, we are tremendously proud of what she's done. We're both blood donors anyway. And
you did that before Lucy did this, did you?
Yeah, John's done it for, is it 70 or 80?
I've donated nearly 70 pints of blood over the years.
So it's clearly, again, something that Lucy was aware of in the family, and the importance of
Yes.
giving that sort of thing to other people if you potentially could. But John, you must have been incredibly proud of her.
Oh, absolutely. I went on a course to the Fire Service College years ago, and Anthony Nolan people came wanting donors, and they wouldn't take me because I was over 40 at the time, and I felt quite upset because I just wanted to think I was going to help somebody, but no, here it is again. It's cropped up, and it's, touch wood, it's worked.
Okay, so it is 10:20 and we are preparing for the street party. Ben and Callum, what are you doing?
Clean the windows at the moment.
Okay, and what else have you been doing? Blowing up some balloons?
Blowing up some balloons, and I think we've just put up the beanbag things.
Okay,
So
and why are we having a party?
Queen's birthday. Well, her birthday is actually in April, but we're doing the Queen's celebration on our street, so...
Christy de Haven, we are celebrating the Queen's birthday.
Cleopatra, it's lovely to see you.
Where's your outfit?
I'm wearing a dress. That's rare in itself. Will that do for you? I've got my legs out.
It is very smart, actually, and the weather has held off, and all our friends who are standing around us now have just disappeared.
That may be to do with the recording equipment. Do you know, I did plan on dressing up, I have to tell you, because it's the Queen's birthday. I was going to dress up as Freddie Mercury from the video where he's dressed in drag and he's got the vacuum cleaner.
Right.
To break free.
And you didn't
so
because...
kind of didn't have anything to dress up into.
We bought you a Hoover anyway. Actually, to be fair, we need to do some clearing up if that's okay.
See you later!
I'm sorry, Alex Brindley.
Yes.
What did you just say?
Well, who are we saying happy birthday to? As in, who are we addressing it to? Is it to the Queen? Happy birthday, dear Queenie. Just doesn't sound right. Or Her Majesty, or dear Lizzie, or are we doing Lord of Man sort of thing?
Let's
Or
just go for it. Let's just go. Yeah, just go for it.
oh, okay.
Your Majesty.
Your Majesty. That sounds better. Okay.
Right, after 3. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Majesty. Happy birthday to you.
I much appreciate the kindness of all your birthday wishes and have been delighted and moved by the many cards and messages I have received. How I will feel if people are still singing Happy Birthday in December remains to be seen.
Because we mentioned this on Monday, the fact that new gender-neutral uniform policies are being introduced across the UK, and basically it's going to mean that boys will be allowed to wear skirts to school and girls to wear trousers whenever they want. It's all part of a drive funded by the UK government for schools to be more open to children who are questioning their gender identity. 80 state institutions, including 40 primary schools, have already removed reference to girls and boys in their dress codes or have rewritten their uniform policy altogether. Well, we've spoken to the Department of Education and Children on the island, and over here the policy is currently that schools themselves determine uniform guidelines. But do you think, Christy, that we should look to introduce something like that over here?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, for one thing, there's two different things going on here, isn't there? Because really, this isn't like saying gender-neutral uniform, because girls have been able to wear trousers for a long time already. And so really what you're saying is, can boys wear skirts in schools? You're not really saying, sort of let's change it entirely. I find this a bit difficult because part of me wants to be able to say, you know what, especially in primary schools, can we let kids be kids for a bit longer? Because I think this is such a sort of growing into adulthood sort of issue. I just want them to be. In fact, there are cases out there where very, very young children have identified as having trouble with working out whether their gender actually meets with their sex, and so I get that. And actually, there's been some lovely stories where they have approached their schools, and the schools have actually embraced that and have talked to the rest of the class about them and the rest of the children about them, and they've been accepted and welcomed. But I just think if you put this out across the board, and then a boy just says, I might wear a skirt today, I just think that's sort of almost not quite hitting the nail on the head with the issue. And also, if there is a boy who is struggling and wants to wear a skirt for the reason that he doesn't quite identify with his gender, you've got to accept the fact that he may be ridiculed for that as well, if it's not handled in the right way. So just saying, let's have a gender-neutral uniform, I don't think quite tackles it myself.
So basically what you're saying is maybe more needs to be channelled into teaching children about acceptance rather than having a specific uniform policy. Let us know, 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com. We did put this on the Women's Day Facebook page, and a couple of those thoughts, Christy. And interestingly, I think it was been broadly accepted as a good idea.
Yeah, in general, yeah. Jenny says, little boys used to wear skirts up until very recent human history. What does it matter so long as the child is clean, fed and loved? Kimberly says, definitely a good idea. And Lucy says, as long as the kids are happy, what does it matter?
The reasons why people set up their own business are quite varied. I think the top reason, which probably isn't that unsurprising, is that nearly half of people say they want to be their own boss, and a third do it for a better work-life balance. But interestingly, the average age now for setting up a business is age 40, which is slightly younger than previous generations. But women are setting up their business at a slightly younger age than men, actually.
I think the last time I spoke to you, Anna, we were talking about being the bedroom being the most important room in the house, which is a very different thing to what we're talking to you about today, because we're now talking to you in the capacity of someone who has very much embraced the outdoors with a passion, haven't you?
I have indeed. And do you know what? I've been doing it for 8 years now, which it feels like about 80 years, to be honest, since I had that moment. Actually, I overheard a conversation with my husband of someone saying, would you invest in a zoo? And I literally just saw the whole thing. It was like a light bulb moment. I saw me nurturing lion cubs and my children running barefoot with baby giraffes, and I couldn't walk away. I literally couldn't walk away. I couldn't imagine life going, what if we'd bought that zoo? I wonder what it had been like. And I think that's what possibly small business people have also had the thought, what if?
Anna, did it turn out the way you wanted it to? Was it as you described it before with the zoo?
No, not at all. Not even one slight sniff of a lion cub needing to be bottle fed. It's the hardest thing we've ever done. There's been tears, there's been shouting. But would I change it? We're 8 years down the line. We part own another one as well now. We're still completely obsessed with the weather. Is it going to rain? Is it going to be a good zoo day weather-wise? Are we going to get the visitors? We scrape through literally every year. But no, I wouldn't change it at all. And we've got some of the most lovely people that work with us. Our zookeepers are just, I think probably this goes throughout the world, zookeepers are an amazing species on their own.
Now, Amy, you mentioned work-life balance there, but everything that Anna's saying now sounds like it could actually be kind of constant work having your own business.
Yeah, it's actually really funny. I mean, it's the second most popular reason why people set up their own businesses, to try and get a better work-life balance. But then when we ask them what are the worst things about being a small business owner, it's the second worst thing. So actually, people go for a work-life balance and then they realise they don't get it at all, because running your own business can really consume you. But when you ask people, would you change it? The vast majority of people say they're much happier running their own business than working for somebody else, and they definitely wouldn't change it.
And Annie, you mentioned the employees there as well. That's a really big thing to deal with, isn't it?
It is, and we've laughed this morning about how I've been sort of fired from lots of departments in the park. Well, most of them actually. Let me tell you, we wouldn't be a business without the employees, and I bow down to them all. And I'm not afraid to get my hands stuck in there. And in fact, really, I've ended up being the head of the Department of Rubbish. So I spend a lot of time picking up rubbish off the floor.
That is a fantastic title, and it does sound like somebody out there is just trying to keep you occupied.
Doesn't it? I never thought of it that way.
So, Amy, of course, when people do decide to set up their own, they are choosing as well to leave, comparative stability, really, of full-time employment. There's the perks with the paid holidays and pensions. So what advice would you give to people to setting up on their own to make sure that they don't neglect not just their own financial security, but also those of the employees, the staff that Anna's talking about?
Yeah, I mean, the research shows that the lack of secure income is one of the biggest worries for a small business owner, and sales as well is one of the things that people worry about most. So, it's really important to have that firm business plan in place and to surround yourself with advisors that can help make sure that all of that red tape and legislative responsibilities that you have to your workforce and that you have as a business owner don't get neglected. Because a lot of small business owners, their businesses are born out of their passion. So they, if you run a bakery, you can be really good at baking, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be great at payroll. So if you're not great at payroll, be honest with yourself and find somebody that can do that stuff for you, because there are big fines for getting this kind of thing wrong. So auto enrolment is new workplace pension legislation, makes it a legal requirement for you to set up a pension scheme and contribute to that pension scheme for any employee that's over the age of 22 and up to state pension age and earns at least £10,000 a year. So it captures an awful lot of people, and it affects you even if you only employ one person. So I think some people won't necessarily see themselves as employers or small business owners, but if you have a nanny or a carer or a gardener, or if you're lucky enough to have a chef, these people would be captured by it. So you need to be on top of that kind of legislation. There's also things like the introduction of the living wage that was introduced earlier on this year. All of those things need to be taken care of. And if you need help, plenty of people that can help you with all of this sort of stuff.
Anna, how did you cope with bringing all of this stuff into your business?
We are surrounded by very clever people. I mean, we wouldn't exist without, I've said the zookeepers, but our accountant is amazing. And no, I'm not allowed into meetings with them anymore. And we have an amazing woman in Pembrokeshire called Kath. And she, without her, without the accountant, without the keepers, we wouldn't have a business. And it's as simple as that. And Amy's absolutely right. You could be... I think I'm very creative and I have lots of ideas, but that's really about it. And then I don't mind getting my hands dirty and being very physical. So I can sweep yards, or I can pick up rubbish, or muck out, or get the hay in. But I cannot work a till, and I can't definitely do a spreadsheet. And as far as doing a business plan, well... if only. And I think it's about a quality of life as well. It's certainly not about making money, what we do. We kind of was in that area before, and I don't necessarily think that brings you any more happiness. I think having a quality of life, having something you're very passionate about, and yes, being your own business, you will probably work harder than ever, and the work-life balance will be very difficult. But it's not really about that. It's about going for something that's just going to make the whole of your life much more liberating and and exciting and worth it.
With all those animals running around, I'm sure it is very exciting as well.
You only have to look at the little tiny baby meerkat that is as small as you could pop it on your keyring, and you just melt, don't you? So
let's hope no one does put it on a keyring.
No, that would be awful. I didn't mean it like that. I did put one in a coffee cup once, but that it climbed in on its own accord. I didn't put it in there.
Okay, so Amy, where can we find out more about this?
Nowpensions.com. If you look on our blog there's plenty of information about it.
Christy talking to Amy Manklow and also Anna Ryder-Richardson. And just listening to that, Emma has emailed to say, I completely agree with the work-life balance issue. If anyone wants to run a business to get a better work-life balance, then it's not the right thing to do. Running a small business is all-consuming, as I have found in the past year, and I never switch off. But there are benefits which outweigh this for me, so it's worth it for workaholics. We are joined live in the studio this afternoon by the fashion designer and stylist Lisa Angwin. And Lisa, you work for yourself, and that was a deliberate choice.
Yes. In the world that I work in, there's not a lot of jobs out there which is a full-time stylist, unless you want to work for ASOS or Net-a-Porter as a stylist on their team doing their e-commerce websites and things. But if you want to get into dressing, musicians, etc., you have to become a freelance stylist and be your own boss.
I don't know, working for yourself, as Emma pointed out there, it is absolutely all-consuming.
It is, yeah. I mean, I did it for some time, and it's, it does take the problem is, of course, you don't switch off, do you? Because you don't have office hours.
No,
so,
you don't. No, I mean, I've had clients call me at 10:30 at night and ask me to go to the other side of London to deliver something and make it appear from thin air. And you got to do it, because there's a lot of people that want to be stylists out there. You know, people will undercut you very quickly. So you've got to, be the best, be there all the time.
Graham has texted to say, it's the best thing I've ever done. I should have done it sooner. So thank you for that. He owns a gardening and DIY business. We were also talking earlier about gender neutral school uniform. Is that something we want to see here on the island? And we've had a really interesting text, which I kind of think sums up my thoughts on this. And it says, I don't think it's too early to introduce kids to transgender issues or gender fluidity. It's precisely the best time to introduce these concepts so they become normalised. It's so important to have these issues introduced to the younger generation so they all grow up thinking they are accepted no matter how they identify. Keep your thoughts coming in, 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com.
I would just add that I totally agree with that, but I do think that just introducing a uniform policy doesn't tackle that.
And next week is Continence Week. To coincide with that, there's a new booklet called Promoting Healthy Bladders. It's been published by the Department of Health over here and is going to be available at GP surgeries around the island. And to talk about it, we're joined by the department's continence advisor, Karen Trowbridge. Now, Karen, we've just been listening to Christy talk about her emerging gaming habit. And one of the concerns is that she's going to forget how to treat her bladder properly.
Absolutely. Probably the most important thing is actually remembering to drink. And remembering to go to the loo to empty your bladder properly.
Because, I mean, all joking aside, it is, in a sense, about training your bladder to be as healthy as possible.
Yeah, it's very simple and it's very easy to fall into habits with your bladder. I mean, certainly one of the types of incontinence, urge incontinence, although there is a genuineness about the actual bladder muscle itself can be very irritable, there are a lot of people that actually get into almost that psychological habit of just going to the toilet and emptying their bladder.
One of the really interesting things you've got in this booklet that we've got here is a bladder diary, and that talks about the input and output, if I can put it like that, how much you're drinking compared to how many times you're going to the loo. Is there an ideal amount of times we should be going? Not that I'm going to aim for that, just so you know.
To be honest, what we say on a normal healthy bladder is basically between about 4 and 7 times a day you should be emptying your bladder as a rule. But again, that depends on when you drink, how much you drink and what you drink effectively.
What are the symptoms then that we shouldn't be ignoring and should definitely go and seek help for?
Well, obviously, the very simple ones is obviously if you ever have stinging or burning or your urine is very offensive in smell, that's quite often a case that you may actually have an infection. And in those cases, the simplest thing is to take a sample of your urine down to the GP. They can just literally do a very simple dipstick and give you a clear indication if that's got an infection or not. and obviously that that can be very easily treated with antibiotics. That's one very simple sort of first line that we rule out. But after that, it's things like, well, actually, how often am I going to the toilet? If you can't last more, for a couple of hours, then basically it may be that you've got an element of an urge incontinence going on. So it's those sorts of things that we need to start looking at. Well, actually, what am I drinking? Am I having the fluids which are actually irritating my bladder? So things like caffeinated drinks, the lovely tea, the coffee. A lot of people don't realise that green tea is very high in caffeine. That's always been deemed the healthy drink. But if you've got a sensitive bladder, that's actually going to make your bladder much more irritable. When you drink it, it's going to work through your system a lot faster, and you're going to want to go for a pee more often.
It's really difficult because we hear about how much water we should be drinking to flush out our systems and how good that is for you. But then there is that element that you could almost have too much.
There's very few people that drink huge amounts. I mean, certainly an average person should be drinking about sort of 1.5 to 2 litres. And by the time you've worked and done the bits and pieces that you have to do in a busy daily life, then quite often, if you actually put it on your bladder diary, you'd be surprised how little people drink. I quite often see people in clinic and they sort of, you ask them about their fluid intake. They'll say, oh no, it's pretty good. And you give them a bladder diary and they come back going, I don't drink as much as I thought.
Yeah, to be honest, I often forget to drink water at all during a day, which is very naughty of me.
While you're gaming.
While I'm gaming, exactly. Thank you for that little reminder. Medications can affect it as well, though, can't they?
They can, yeah. And obviously, as people get older, quite often GPs and things, they need medication for other conditions that develop for other reasons. And certainly anybody who's on the lovely diuretics, quite commonly referred to as water tablets, a lot of people think those are for the bladder. Whereas actually the tablets themselves aren't for the bladder. The tablets are there to sort of increase the amount of work the kidneys do, which produce the urine. So therefore it has the effect of making you want to go to the loo more often. And obviously those can make a big difference on how often you're going to go.
Your role as a continence advisor is really, as you said at the start of the show, hopefully to prevent problems before they happen. But it's important that people know if they have got any issues that largely there are treatments that can help them and products that can help them.
There are, definitely. And obviously one of the things that is in the booklet is that if you've tried the very simple things about making your bladder better, if you've tried looking at how much you drink, if you've looked at what you're drinking, if you've looked at the patterns of drinking and things like that, done some pelvic floor exercises, which is always the one that everyone goes, oh yes, I've heard of them, but actually I don't really know how to do them. I don't quite know where my pelvic floor is. All those exercises we've put into the booklet so that people can actually have a go. Pelvic floor exercises, if you don't do them, you're going to have a problem later on, because at some point that is your foundation your bladder's sitting on. If your foundation goes south, then so does your bladder. And the souther it goes, then the harder it is for the sphincters to work and make things better.
I think trampoline, not hammock. Yeah? That's what
Thanks
my
for that.
midwife told me. So Miles, here we are. Just tell us what you're doing.
About to roll out the pizza bases for the food assembly tonight. So in about an hour, this place is turned into a food hall for everyone to pick up their online shopping from local produce. So we run a little pizza in here in the bakehouse just for anyone who wants to get some food whilst they're collecting their shopping. They can do that. So we use all the local ingredients from the assembly and try and make something different each week with it.
And how much pressure do you feel time-wise? Because, you have to make sure everything's ready on time, you've got your baking time. Does it ever go a little bit haywire?
Always when I'm doing it. But the team's fantastic and they normally sort it all out really well.
Okay, talk us through what you need to do then.
I'm not a pizza maker by trade, so I can't chuck it in the air, I'm afraid. But all I'm doing is just stretching out the dough. So these are sourdough pizzas, and we made these this morning. And I'm just going to stretch these out so we can just add our toppings later when people start ordering them. But then they get to sit and relax and prove a little bit.
When you get home, do you just get a pizza from the supermarket and bung it in the oven?
No. I tried that actually last week and I didn't enjoy it. But tonight I'll be taking some sauce and some bases, and me and the girls will make pizzas for tea. So that's it's a perk of the job. I get to bring a little bit home with me.
And how sophisticated would you say the taste of the Manx public is?
I don't know how it's as sophisticated as anywhere else, I guess. I think it's the nice thing about our pizzas, they're just made using really simple ingredients, and there's not a lot more to them. And I think people appreciate that.
I love the way you took this off that tray there in a real blue pita. Here's one I made earlier.
Oh yes, it's a good childhood. Yeah, the nice thing about having them all paired is that actually that all I'm doing is just turning them on the back of my hand, whereas all of the hard work's already been done for me by the team.
Christy, do you think we should have a go, or maybe?
I think you should have a go. You should have a go. Definitely have a go. Come on. Yeah, let me get aprons and let's get sorted. I'll film.
And you can find out how we got on the Women's Day Facebook page. We'll post our video. I mean, the pizzas we made, Miles, I've never seen better. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, definitely handcrafted. Yeah, artisanal.
I think unique is
unique
in a pizza base.
I think the fact that I forgot to take my watch off and said there's going to be a Jungle Book watch imprint on the ones that I made. Yeah. I'm quite proud of that.
But it sounds very simple there, and I think you're really sort of playing it down. But you were talking about the fact it is a 3:30 start if you're on baking duty. Yep. And your staff really have to know what they're doing. Where did they get their training from?
Well, we sort of, I think it's a snowball effect. I trained the first member, and the team, we just introduce, every time someone new comes in, we introduce them into the team, and you just learn by doing and just picking up a little bit along the way. But I'm still learning now as well, so it's a collaborative thing. We're all sort of just enjoying our job and getting on with it, and picking up new tricks and trying new things and adjusting to changes.
We were hearing from Cassandra Stavro from Propercorn just before the advert break there, and she was talking about people wanting to know what's in their food, sort of going back to basics of natural ingredients. What is the ethos of Noah with regard to all that?
Well, the only thing that is in sourdough bread and is flour, water, and a little bit of salt. 1% of our recipe is salt. So the Baker House is open plan, so you can see everything that goes into your food, be it the bread being made or the food being prepped for the cafe or your drinks being made, everything that is on display, so whoever comes into the Bakehouse can see it all before them. I think there's so many nasty things added into everyday food that you wouldn't think about. It is nice to be able to see, people using honest ingredients.
And the use of local produce is also something that's hugely important to you.
Yeah, all around the cafe are the ingredients that we use, to make the products that we do. So I'm a big believer in buying local when it's really good, and we're really fortunate here that we've got some fantastic farmers growing some great wheat, and we got some great tasting flour that we get to make bread out of. And again, for eggs, I think TT Week we got through 2,500 free range eggs, which just to feed the bikers. So it's quite impressive numbers when you start thinking about it.
Wow. Can I ask you, with regards to the bread, and I love the fact that every time you see Miles now, he has a little dusting of flour over him. It's great. With regards to sourdough, what is it about sourdough? Why is it important? Because you've got this special leaven, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a wild yeast, so it's just feeding off the air. So flour and water is sort of it's a natural way of rising your dough, and by doing that it's slowing down the whole process, so you can make bread in 2 hours. We make bread over 3 days, and we take a long time in shaping, folding, and doing that makes the bread work, and it builds up a lot more flavour and texture, and that's kind of why our bread tastes the way it does.
And isn't it sort of, there's something really sort of magical about the leaven, isn't it? Because it's like your own personal...
Yeah, we call it our mother. We feed it twice a day. Someone's always got to look after mother, and it reacts to, if it's really hot, the leaven or the mother gets really active, so we have to use colder water to slow it down, or we try and keep the mother in the fridge. And
I hope someone's just tuned in at that point. That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? We were making those pizzas last night for the food assembly, which is a fairly new venture still. How is that going?
It's fantastic. I do quite a lot of shopping for the food assembly, because of not only do you get the convenience of shopping online and knowing what you got in your basket and what you'll be collecting, but you also get the experience of meeting the producers, getting to know a little bit more about what they've been up to, what else you could buy in the assembly the following week, and kind of understanding where your food's coming from.
Something else that you're involved in is the boxes. that you are doing in conjunction with Isle of Man Creamery. Customers can get a wooden box. They're made by the Manx Workshop for the Disabled. And basically, you're moving into the doorstep delivery trade.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. It's something that we've been working on at the Bakehouse for over 18 months, and Sunday will be my first evening bake. So I'm really looking forward to it because of it. I like the idea of waking up on a Saturday morning and having your breakfast at your doorstep. And as much as I love going to the Bakehouse, it'd be quite good on my day off to open my box and be able to make myself coffee, bread, and eat croissants in my kitchen.
And our guest today is taking part in a charity boxing match. And while that is pretty impressive in itself, it's the reason why she's doing it, which is really interesting. Lisa Grant, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Take us back to Christmas 2014. What happened?
We had a works Christmas party and I saw some pictures of myself that made me feel really sad. I was overweight. I was unhappy with the way I looked, with the way I felt about myself, and decided to do something about it. So January 2015, I signed up for the gym, which a lot of us have done hundreds of times, and I'd never successfully done it before. So I thought that this time I'd give myself things to achieve. So I signed up for 100 days of fitness, focusing on that rather than what the scales were showing me. Did 100 days of fitness in 6 months, then I did Tough Man, signed up for a couple of half marathons because I started running and just found that I absolutely loved it. And then it came to round about Christmas 2015, I was looking for my next challenge, and Thriller in the Villa popped up. So I thought, this sounds interesting. I'm not into boxing at all. I can't even watch boxing. I like cowering in the corner saying, please don't hurt him when it's on. So I thought, if I can get in the ring in front of lots of people and train myself to box, to do something that I'm not comfortable with, then that would be a huge achievement for me. And then I also saw that they support hospice in Rebecca House, and sadly 9 years ago my dad died from cancer, and I miss him so much. I think about him all the time, and I thought that if I could raise some money and raise awareness and do something to make him proud of me, that would also help me with my training. And it has. He's like on my mind all the time.
Because it's not just a case of just going in there and throwing a few punches. It's quite technical, isn't it?
It is so technical. It's a lot more technical than I thought it'd be, but it's been so much fun learning it as well and getting fit. Like, I'm working out around 12 to 14 hours a week now. I've got my own boxing gloves, designed my own boxing kit. It's great. I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm doing 3 boot camp sessions at Fit Body Fitness, so that's high intensity for an hour at 6 o'clock every morning. Weight training, boxing 3 times a week. That's high intensity cardio for about an hour and a half each session.
I'm exhausted.
I love it because, as you said, you're such a pretty girl and you've got like these beautiful eyelashes, your nails are all done, she's so prettified. You're not exactly a tomboy, are you?
Not at all, which is why this has made it even more interesting for me, is because it's such a challenge, because people have looked at me and said, you, boxing? What are you going to do with your eyelashes on the night? I'm going to take them out. There's actually been situations where I've been sparring and I've been worried about my eyelashes. So that's not going to happen on the night.
Tell us about the first time you went to the boxing gym, the first time you sparred.
Well, the first time I went to the boxing gym was in January, and I will never forget it, because all my training before then has been in a gym where it's nice and clean and tidy and there's air conditioning. Walked into the boxing gym and the first thing I could smell was boys, teenage boys. And I will never forget that, never. But everyone's so friendly and nice and helping you out, and everybody just goes out of their way. That although it was quite awkward walking in, it's just, from the first time I went in till now, it's just amazing. Everyone's so helpful. It's great.
Do you have a high pain threshold? Because doesn't it hurt?
It does hurt, but you get used to it and you try to avoid getting hurt. But it's just all part of the process. Like, I come out covered in bruises, and I've been punched in the face, and I've had a bleeding nose. It's interesting and it's challenging, but life's all about getting out of your comfort zone and doing something different, and that is what I'm doing.
You have to tell us what you said when you first bled from a punch.
Well, I was sparring with another girl, and it was one of my first boxing sparring sessions, and she turned to me, she must have caught me on the nose, she said to me, "Oh my God, you're bleeding." So I turned to the coach, hand to my face, and I said, "Am I bleeding?" And he said, "Yes, you're bleeding." I went, "Yes, I'm bleeding." I carried on with the fight. It's just the adrenaline. The adrenaline's amazing.
And what sort of reaction have you had from friends, family? I'm thinking particularly about your son.
Everyone has been so supportive, really supportive. Like I put on anything I put on Facebook, everyone's putting comments. People are helping me out with my training. People are getting really involved. I've got a personal trainer, Derek Kane. He's just great. He helps me out all the time. I'll message him if I'm having a bad day, and he's really supportive. Everyone at work supportive when I'm sitting there eating chicken and rice and eggs. I've been banned from eating eggs at my desk. I have to go in the kitchen, but and my son, he's just been great. He's like, hasn't really said much, but the other night he turned around to me and was sat on the couch and he goes to me, "Oh my God, Mum, your biceps." I was like, what?
Where are you going with this? Are you going to go and travel around the UK and get a lot more competitive?
After the 24th of September, I will probably never box again. Only because I'm all about setting myself new challenges. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the boxing training. I'm going to go to and win the fight on the 23rd of September, and then I'm going to move on to something else. I've found that I've really enjoyed running since I've started my training, and I've had to drop that because the intensity's increased for the boxing, so that I'll be able to go back to that after September and maybe do a full marathon next year.
Can I ask you, it's the same thing I asked Maria Costello when she's in about being sort of a sportswoman. When you do these things like Tough Man and boxing, do you walk into these places and want to be seen as a woman doing this, or do you just want to be seen as a boxer or a competitor?
I just want to be treated like everyone else, exactly the same as everyone else, and I think that's how you'll get the most out of it. And I found that has happened mainly quite a lot. Sometimes the boys will be a little bit more gentle with you, but other times they just treat you like, the same as them, and that's what you want, really. I'm there to box, I'm not there to be a girl. Though I put a little bit of a girly glam spin on it, wear my pink clothes and all that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, it's to just go in there and learn how to box like a boxer, not like a female boxer.
And do you watch boxing now?
I've had to start, and I'm having to force myself because I never was able to watch it before. I just have to turn away or cower in the side of the couch. I'm like, force yourself, Lisa, watch it, like it's some kind of punishment, and it's getting easier.
And clearly the physical effects of doing all this training and doing the boxing have been great, but I'm guessing mentally as well, you must be in a much better place than you were a couple of years ago.
Oh, so much better. When I look at pictures from me from that time, I actually feel quite sad for that person. That's like, it's not even me now. I look at that picture and I think, it like just brings back the feelings of how sad and unhappy I was, and I'm just not like that now. I'm happy and confident and bubbly, and I'm going to stand in that ring in front of 30,000 people, so that's going to take a lot of confidence, and I think that's what I've got out of it the most. Although the physical changes have been amazing, I can lift heavy stuff now, and I'm probably a lot harder to attack because I can run quick. If they try and grab my bag, I can hold on to it really hard. But it's been good. It's definitely the emotional side, and I would just want to say to anybody who's feeling like that about themselves, find what motivates you. Go out there, get out of your comfort zone, and do it, because it is so worth it.
As ever, thank you so much for downloading the Women's Day podcast. If you want to join us live, we are with you on Manx Radio AM and FM just after 2:00 every weekday. We'd love to hear your suggestions for guests we should have on the show, things we should be talking about. You can email womentoday@manxradio.com and follow what we're up to on Twitter. It's @MRWomenToday, or go to the Facebook page, like and follow the page while you're there. Until next time then, goodbye.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin, or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.